Namaste, greetings, Albuquerque, Center for Spiritual Living. I'm here. So let's begin. Wow. Starting off the new year, Reverend Amani's, surfing the planet and enjoying sabbatical. And we are gathering here to talk about this idea of a grand rising. Grand rising. So I have a question or a series of questions. Rising from what? In the same way that we may talk about, someone who early to bed, early to rise. Okay, so you are rising from slumber to wakefulness. Okay, so rising from what? If we are going to talk about 2024, this month, January, and grand rising, then what are we rising from? Rising from a system of colonization? That system of sleeping within indoctrinated collective consciousness of toxic patriarchy, homomisia, transmisia, rape culture, and more? Are we rising from that? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. Okay, so rising from. Well, what are we rising to? Sleep to wakefulness, oppression to liberation? Is that what we are rising to? A world that works for all is what we are rising to. Well, what are we rising from? A system of status quo where the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, where the top 1%. Okay. I hear you. So what are we rising to? What are we rising with? Are we rising with the energy of the infinite? Are we rising with the energy of, for example, oftentimes we reference faith, and we reference faith as being this powerful force for good and stuff. Gotcha. But do we realize that one can have non-life affirming faith? Worry. Non-life affirming fear, that's actually using this power, faith, to believe in, to be convicted to hold on to whatever this paradigm is that is non-life affirming. And then there's life affirming faith that gives us the ability to live our lives individually and collectively in alignment with love, compassion, equity, justice, etc. And speaking of alignment, we often talk about being in alignment. Are you in alignment with God? Well, God being all there is, what does that actually mean? Am I not always in alignment with God, since what it is I am? So let's clarify, because we're always in alignment with something. Am I in alignment with fear and dread and colonization, or am I in alignment with, we're always in alignment with something. So let's start to clarify. When I say, am I in alignment with God, God being all there is, what am I saying? Am I in alignment with that which is life affirming? Am I in alignment with that which supports equity and justice? Am I in alignment with that supports food for all and homes for the unhoused? Am I in alignment with a system and structure of, even when Dr. Holmes says in the Sermon by the Sea, I am not religious science, you are. Am I in alignment with what he is referring to? Well, what is he referring to? What does it mean for me to rise into this energy of I am? He didn't say religious scientist. He said, you are religious science. Am I rising to, am I rising with, since that's what we're talking about now, am I rising with a sense of the principles of science of mind and spirit to such a degree that I need not say, well, Dr. Holmes said. It shows up in how I live. It shows up in how I communicate. It shows up in how I say hello to the barista at the Starbucks. It shows up in how I live, move, and have my being. Am I rising and showing up with spiritual principles? Am I rising up as the very embodiment of the teaching? Am I rising up as the very embodiment of what it means to be a 21st century New Thought Good Samaritan? Am I rising as the very energy of, you know, the story of Moses goes to the mountain, 10 Commandments, burning bush. When Moses says, this is Ray's version, you know, there's the King James, the New International, there's the Reverend Ray version where Moses says, hey, so you know these people because you created them. You know, when I go back down this mountain, they're going to be like, so show us the resume of whoever you were talking to, because we need the names, because, you know, we're big on names and we're that whole networking thing, because such and such knows such and such, who knows such and such, who begat, who they're big on names. So when I go down there, they're going to want to know who sent you, who gave you this. What you talking about, Willis? They're going to want to know. And what was said was Yod He Vav He. I am that I am is what it's traditionally stated as. Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh and had a lot of Jewish friends from growing up in Pittsburgh. So I've had many conversations with various rabbis and, you know, folks who speak Hebrew and stuff. And I was told that that's actually an abbreviated version of what it's actually saying. What it's actually saying is, I am, according to them, I am that I am ever becoming. It's evolving consciousness. I am that I am ever becoming more, ever becoming, ever shifting, ever changing, ever evolving. So am I rising with the energy of the infinite I am, that it is as me, as ever evolving consciousness? Because if I'm not rising to that degree, in that manner, in that way, then what am I actually doing? What am I actually showing up as in terms of I am someone who lives, moves, and has their being as a minister of science of mind and spirit, religious science, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the same way that when someone says, I am a dancer, we understand that there's a certain thing that connects to, oh, you are a dancer, it means you dance. And because we have a certain paradigm connected to dance, we're immediately going to go into, oh, well, does that mean they do tap, they do jazz, they do ballet? Do they do some Afro-Caribbean form? What is it that they do? Because they dance, and those are forms of dance. Someone says, I am a chef. Well, we understand chef means some aspect of culinary skills, cooking, etc. I am an iron chef. Oh, that's a different level of. I am a baker. Okay. I am a carpenter. Okay. We understand what a carpenter does, carpentry, which is this list of woodworking, house building, blah, 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 blah. I am a religious scientist. What does that mean? Well, you do religious science. Okay. What does that mean? How often and how many of us are able to actually clarify what it means to be that without saying, so what are you? I am a carpenter. What? You said, say it again. I am a carpenter. What is that? Well, what a carpenter is, well, it means I don't do masonry, I don't cook, I don't dance, I don't paint, I don't draw, I don't fly planes, I don't. At what point do you tell me what you do? So rather than clarifying who we are by stating who and what we're not, let's start clarifying. Let's rise into this energy of, let's rise into this new year with a different paradigm of such clarity that we know exactly who and what we are, and we are able to not only say it, explain it, but we're also able to live it. That we're able to really embody the energy in the same way that Dr. Holmes says, whatever is true about God is true about you. What does that look like? That whatever is true about God, whatever is true about the infinite, whatever is true about the divine is true about you. So that when we say any of our we believe statements, we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual spirit ever and ever and ever, forever expanding. What does that look like? As we live in these finite forms based on finite time. What time is it? It's noon. What time is it? 3. I only have an hour to get from finite. We reference the finite in so many different ways, which is fine, as long as we understand that we are also even greater than just the finite, even though we are greater than, in the same way that someone who is dancing knows that this one step is only one step, one movement in the grand choreography of, well, this 1 hour is only one step in the grand choreography of the universe expressing. And if I only focus on the one move, as if that's it, okay, now what? Now what? So how are we being invited to really rise with a new energy of, I not only know what I am rising from, I know what I am rising to, I know what I am rising with, I know what I am rising as, and I am willing to be, as Bayard Rustin would say, I am willing to be an angelic troublemaker. As Representative John Lewis would say, I am here to make or to do or to engage in good trouble. Now, what does that even mean? It means we are willing to be a conscious divine agitator that will not follow the status quo, in the same way that Yeshua gave a parable of the Good Samaritan. And the Good Samaritan, that whole parable, the whole story, is to show how this individual, rather than doing what the status quo would have him do, he chose a different path. He chose to help the individual on the ground who was left for dead. He agitated the system by being authentic and standing in his own power to do what was his to do. Are we willing, as this new year begins, to rise into this new energy? To be the, as a washing machine has the agitator that moves the waters. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's going to trouble. It's in the troubled waters, it's in the agitated waters, it's in the waters that move, that healing and transformation and life occurs. Are we willing to rise into a new energy of what it means to embody that? And not just individually, but to do so collectively, as one of the things S. Kelly Harrell says, we don't heal in isolation. We heal in community, which we could go on and say, we don't transform in isolation. We transform in community. And what is community? We arbitrarily talk about building community and community and community, but community is actually relationship. We don't heal by ourselves, but we heal when we are in relationship. We don't transform by ourselves. We transform when we are in relationship. And some have told me, they've said, but Reverend Ray, when the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it goes in there by itself. But there's a whole relationship that the caterpillar has with every cell and molecule of its being. It has a relationship with the cocoon that is formed that gives it the safe structure where the caterpillar itself can liquefy and allow the imaginal cells to then restructure and reform so that then this new being can emerge and still in relationship, because now the wings push against the cocoon, and it is that very pushing and resistance of the cocoon that makes the wings strong enough so that the butterfly can fly. It's still in relationship. So don't try to throw this thing at me as if you're rugged individualism and no, it's relationship. So how do we move into relationship? As Emmett Till's mother, Mamie Till Mobley, said a couple of months, this is when her son was murdered. A couple of months ago, I had a nice apartment in Chicago and living comfortably and fine, and would hear about what's going on with the Negroes in Mississippi, and I would think, what's going on with them is none of my business. That's their business, until my son was murdered, and I realized that what happens to any of us anywhere had better be the business of all of us everywhere. Fannie Lou Hamer says, nobody's free until we're all free. Are we all free? Are women free to walk down the street without being accosted with whistles and toxic patriarchy? Are other members of the LGBTQ community afforded the same respect where they don't encounter homomisia or transmisia? I don't talk about homophobia or transphobia. These people are not afraid. They have hatred. So it's misia. Do members of the LGBTQ community, do we have the freedom to simply be without the threat of hate crimes? Are people free to drink clean water? Flint, Michigan? It's easy to talk about some other country where we're talking about Flint, Michigan. Do they have clean water yet? What other cities? Do we have the freedom to walk down any street in any neighborhood without the threat of gun violence, gang violence, drugs? And if there's still work to do, then there's still work to do. How do we rise into a new way of coming together as community in relationship to do the work that needs to be done? Because simply saying, Happy New Year, and going about our business as if this year is the same as last year, as if it's the same as the year before, the year before, the year before, and 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 the year before. Before we know it, it's 1812. Women are being burned at the stake for witchcraft. Black folks are being kidnapped and forced into slavery, etc. Is that the energy we desire to carry into the year 2024 and beyond? Is that the energy that's going to create a world that works for all? No. So how do we rise into a new era of what it means to be practitioners of science of mind and spirit, licensed or not? We are practitioners of the teaching. What does it mean to rise into a new era of what it means to be a humane human living, moving, and operating in this system? How do we not speak truth to power, because that is actually pseudo power that we are referring to, but how do we speak, not just with our mouths, but speak with our lives? How do we speak truth powerfully? How do we show up as the very power and presence of the infinite? That's our invitation. That's our call to action. And part of it is, let's have conversation about it. Let's dive deeper. So when I say, what is religious science? What does it mean to be a religious scientist? What does it mean to be a metaphysician? What does it mean to practice new thought? What does it mean to study the science of mind and spirit? What does it mean to attend a CSL? What is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is it that we teach? What is it that we believe? What is it that we practice? And we are able to respond. What does it mean to be an individualized expression of God? What does it mean? A world that works for all. What does it mean? Because if we don't know what it means, when I say mizu, unless you speak Japanese, if I say Wasser, unless you speak German, well, okay, what about agua? Most of us know that. So, words. But to the person who is dehydrated, they're parched. Does it matter what I call it? No, because they're not able to drink the words anyway. They need the substance. And it is the substance that now is consumed and hydrates their body temple. So we can throw out these words, a world that works for all. Words. Doesn't matter what you call it. What is the essence of it that we are now rising into as the construction team that has, or as Disney would refer to it, as the Imagineers who take from the imagination, but do we really know what it is in order to now engineer it, in order to construct it? Let's dive into greater discourse of what it actually looks like, what it means. Let's rise into a new era of what it means to be a 21st century new thought, good Samaritan, who is practicing a new thought, a metaphysical liberation theology. Because once again, until everyone's free, none of us are truly free. So let's rise into and make this year, 2024, the year that all are free. Namaste, blessings, and much love. See you soon.